Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Real Point of View. I'm your host, Greg Morgan. I'm the Real Movie Guy. We've got the movie maven herself, Miss Karen D, joining us. And we also have our critic at large, Steve, who just doesn't pick bad movies. And I know that to be pretty true. I've listened to this young man talk about movies, and I've taken his suggestions, and by gummy, he's been right, at least in my mind.
It's what I do.
It's what he does. Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about some films that we think you really like. And it's kind of like our theme today is, hey, what do we watch next? And so we'll talk about that today. What do we watch next? What are the best movies? We've been out there looking at different trailers, trying to read up on the different films and the actors and all that good stuff, trying to figure out, hey, what should we be watching next? You know, this summer had a few blockbusters, not as big as a lot of other summers have been. So what is it that we're going to watch now? I mean, you know, Deadpool had a pretty good following this summer. A lot of people really liked that film. I thought it was a little crazy. Ryan Reynolds, he's kind of been that superhero in both DC and Marvel movies. But I think he actually did a pretty good job in Deadpool. So what now, guys? What do we have next? Why don't we do this? Karen, you want to get us started with at least one of your picks of what we should be watching next, and why should we be watching it? I mean, what's so big about the movie that you decided to choose?
Well, the first movie that I would like to mention, I was trying to call it up as you called my name.
Yes, because we're perfect like that.
Oh my God. The first movie that I'd like to bring up is a movie called Queen of Katwe. It's coming out in actually September, next month, towards the end of September, and it's a Disney movie.
Okay.
And it's about it's based on a true story about a young woman from Uganda, a girl really, who strives to become the national chess champion in Uganda.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, she comes from profoundly distressing circumstances, and, you know, it's the story where you have this young girl who has no right to be thinking about chess because survival is the issue. The family survival is what needs to be dealt with. But her mother, who's played by Lupita Nyong'o, who won the Academy Award for 12 Years a Slave, you know, encourages her dreams, and she, this young woman who Medina Nawanga plays Fiona Mutesi, and Fiona Mutesi is the girl who strives to become the champion, and she runs across Robert Katende, who's leads a chess club, and he becomes a mentor of hers, and that person's played by David Oyelowo. So there's some really good actors in this movie, and I just think it's really an intriguing story. I can't wait to see it. I'll be one of the ones who lines up to see this movie towards the end of September.
So do you think it's going to have the same effect as Achille the Bee would have on the viewing public?
Maybe more, but you know, it really depends on how audiences receive it. I think what's in favor of this movie is that it has a lot of big money behind it. I mean, it has the Disney machine. Mm-hmm. That's about as deep as you can get in terms of pockets, and you've got an Academy Award-winning actress who has thrown herself into this role, and it's the first time that we've seen her on screen in a main release or a first release movie, wide release movie since 12 Years a Slave. She hasn't done any other movies where she's had a main role since then. She did a voice in one of a movie not too long ago. She did a voice, but we haven't seen her. So
I think the last time I saw her was a really small role. and it was in a movie with Liam Neeson. I think it was called No. It was the one where he was the air marshal.
Uh, bu- 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 Nonstop.
Nonstop. Thank you.
Nonstop. Yep.
Yeah. And her role was like minuscule, and it was after she won the Academy Award, and I was quite surprised. I expected more. So I agree with you, Karen. Yeah, that this would probably be a big one.
I think people might be interested in seeing her again. And David Oyelowo was nominated for an Academy Award for Selma. We haven't seen him in too many things since then. And I think the other thing, what will intrigue me, or what does intrigue me about this movie, is the director, who is Mira Nair. And she's an Indian woman. She's from India, and she's directed some major blockbusters. She directed Mississippi Masala, and she wrote that movie with Denzel Washington from the 1990s. And she's done a number of highly regarded, critically acclaimed movies, some of them focusing on her native India, and others not. She contributed. There was a film done after 9/11 was released, where directors were asked to contribute like a small sort of vignette, and she was one of the directors who was asked to do that, and she did like a great job. I just love her. I love her work. I love her writing. So I'm excited to see this movie.
Great. Well, hey, Steve, why don't you give us one of your movies that you just don't pick a bad one? So let's see if we agree with you. You got a movie for us?
I'm gonna start off with The Magnificent Seven. It's a remake of the 1960 classic as it comes to westerns, which you can't go wrong with a good western. Especially, they seem to be putting out really good ones here recently. But Chris Pratt, Denzel Washington, Ethan Hawke, Vincent D'Onofrio, Peter Sarsgaard, the lineup is stellar. So it's got selling power based on that just alone. Chris Pratt is playing a gambler, Denzel Washington a bounty hunter, Ethan Hawke a sharpshooter. So it's a movie with a real diverse group of people coming together for a cause. And the cause is that there's this guy who's coming in and taking over towns, just destroying people's lives. And one of the survivors, a female, basically finds Denzel and asks her for help, asks her to give her a level of retribution, so to speak. And Denzel goes to putting this gang of, I guess, a macabre of people together, and basically going after 7 men versus an army and trying to overcome the odds. And it's really got that Western old style feel. The music has got that old organy piano style to go with it. It's got a little bit of comedy to break up all the tense action and the drama that I've seen so far in the trailers that they've done. The movie comes out September 23rd. I'm so excited about it, I'm taking my family to go see it.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. In comparison to the original movies with Yul Brynner.
Also, Steve McQueen. You got to add Steve McQueen was in that.
Steve McQueen. I mean, there's a myriad of guys that are in that series of movies, because I think the original was like 3 movies. The Magnificent Seven, Return of the Magnificent Seven. I think there was
right, 1960s.
With that being said, do you think this remake's gonna be able to withstand the scrutiny of being a remake? I mean, we did a show on remakes where some of them not so good. So you think this is going to actually be worth our viewers to watch?
I really feel that it will. Remakes, you being a purist, as we've discussed this whole time a lot, is remakes that basically take the source material and really don't do a good job with it. They don't they don't pay homage to the old style or to what was so good about the original, or they go in a completely different direction. I feel like this one's going to get that little bit of paying homage, plus they're going to go in their own direction. You're going to be able to go watch this movie not having seen the original Magnificent Seven, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to get a real original experience. And then you go see the original Magnificent Seven, and you go, oh, well, they're telling a completely different story. They're telling you something the actors are portraying differently to give it more of an homage instead of basically, this is our story, screw that story, we don't want anything to do with that.
Okay. Sounds like a winner. I'm kind of looking forward to that one. I had seen that trailer as well, and I am a fan of pretty much everybody in that one as well. So
I'm looking forward to it too.
All right. Well, I'm gonna throw my little.
I don't pick bad movies.
That remains to be seen. But yeah, so much is my experience so far with you, Steve. So that so far so good. I wanted to throw a movie out there that actually is out currently in theaters right now, and it was a movie that after I saw the trailer, I thought, okay.
Wait a minute, you're breaking your own rules.
So terribly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But it's okay if anybody hasn't seen it.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't seen it.
Shaking my head. I'm just shaking my head.
But hey, here's the thing. Because this is one of those things where a lot of people were telling me about this movie, and so I had to see the trailer. And because I'm a comic book kid, this movie is always going to be the type of movie that's going to be on my radar anyway. So this one's in the theaters now. I know. Well, I'm just crazy now. I'm just like wild, man. But the movie that I'm referring to is Suicide Squad. Now, when I heard this movie was coming out, I was thinking, okay, I remember the comic book, and I was thinking they're not going to be able to do this. And after seeing the trailers, because I did watch the trailers first, after seeing the trailers, I thought this is actually going to be pretty good. And of course, again, one of the key components here is the cast. The cast is a really good cast. And this is one of the films that, this is a DC film, for all you comic book people out there. And it follows along at the end of Batman versus Superman. It follows along with Superman being dead, like he died in Hope. There I go. Spoiler alert. Didn't get my spoiler alert. Well, in Batman and Superman's demise, this movie starts off where they've got to figure out, well, what are you going to do? If Superman's not here to protect us, who's going to protect us from all those metahumans that are out there, or creatures from other planets? So they found their own little squad of people, but the irony is that these are all villains and people who are actually been imprisoned for the things that they did. And they figured, hey, prisoners know how to do these crazy things and get away with it, so now they've got to figure out a way to utilize them to hopefully, when something happens, win the day. I think I like that scheme. I like that bad is going to be the new good. So I think this is a really good movie. It's got a great cast of people in it. We've got Will Smith. Get over here. I'm going to get my paper. We've got Will Smith. Margaret Robbie, she's really hot in a lot of films, and she's done another film with Denzel Washington. And one of my favorites, who I think is a great actress, is Viola Davis. I like David Harbour. He plays typically kind of bad guy, good guys. And I mean, this is a myriad of really good actors in here. And one of the best Jokers out there in Jared Leto, who won an Academy Award for, what movie was that? Dallas
Buyers Club.
Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is a movie that everyone should try to get out to see while it's in the theaters. I like it. I've only seen a little bit of it, a little bit past the trailer. So, but it's a good film so far.
It's getting mixed reviews.
I know, but But see, you obviously have to take into consideration all those people who are comic book people. It's important that this is part of that DC universe situation, and so that it takes it from Batman and Superman to Suicide Squad to whatever that next movie is going to be. And they're trying to, which probably would be Wonder Woman. So trying to get their hold out there of the viewing public, like Marvel has done. Marvel's done a wonderful job, and just like you say earlier, Karen, they've got the machine behind them in Disney on Marvel, but DC doesn't have that. Right. So this is their attempt to try to keep up. It's not a bad attempt.
Interesting.
So what else you got for us, Karen?
My next film is a film called Hidden Figures. This movie is coming out in January, actually, January 2017, and it's actually getting such good buzz that there are rumors now that the producers are going to try to sneak it in under the Oscars consideration deadline. So that for next year's Oscars it could potentially be nominated. And what they might do is have some like extended trailers at the Toronto Film Festival, which is coming up next month. That's where that's a huge film festival, as both of you know, and for those in our audience who don't know, in North America, the Toronto Film Festival is one of the premier film festivals, and that's where a lot of the stars, the very VIPs of the movie world, they will make it to Toronto, and there are a couple of other festivals in North America that they'll make it to. Toronto's definitely one of them. So they may have like extended trailers with Pharrell Williams doing like kind of a concert around that, because he's one of the producers of the movie and he's scoring the movie and writing music for the movie. So yeah, and it's really cool because the movie's taking place in the 60s. And as far as I'm concerned, that's when the best music was made anyway. Because, it had like a melody and, a beat, and you could dance to it. So, if he's writing music in that style, it'll be a real pleasure to listen to, and it'll really be a nice compliment, I think, to the movie. Women who were considered for this movie who didn't get in, Viola Davis was one of those women. Oprah Winfrey was another one of those women. But Taraji P. Henson got the nod. Octavia Spencer won an Academy Award for, what did she win the Academy Award for?
The Help.
The Help, yes. I read the book and saw the movie. I can't believe I forgot that. So Academy Award winner Octavia Spencer is reunited again with Kevin Costner. They did Black or White a couple of years ago. Janelle Monáe is making her feature film debut. She's known as a singer. I have no idea what her acting chops are like, but
looks good.
She looks the part to me. Octavia Spencer and Taraji P. Henson really has the lead. She's playing Katherine Johnson, who's like this math genius. And Octavia Spencer plays Dorothy Vaughan, who's her supervisor, and Janelle Monáe is this young woman who actually is trying to become an engineer. And of course, all three of these women run up against all kinds of racial and sexual obstacles in trying to make their contributions to the NASA program. And this was something that I guess what intrigued me is that this is something I never found out. I never knew about this. But these three women helped do the mathematical calculations that were needed to send John Glenn around in his orbit around the Earth. And Dorothy Vaughan was involved in the mathematical calculations that were required to send the first manned space mission to the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. So these are amazing women with incredible mathematical skills that we never heard about. We never read about in the history books. now we are going to hear about them. Thank goodness. A woman wrote their story, and the rights were optioned by I think her name is Dorothy Gigliotti, and she worked with another woman, Alison Spencer, I want to say. I may not have the name quite right, but anyway, they collaborated on writing and and getting this from the pages onto the screen. I cannot wait to see this movie. I love movies like this about people just doing something and contributing something amazing to the world as we know it. I would like to see more movies like this.
Yeah, we're pretty what's the word? Receptive to biopics, things that happen in life, as you alluded to, Karen, that make a difference. So with that segue, Steve, I think one of your movies is a biopic, right?
Mine is a bit of a true story. Cool. Mine is a bit of a true story. More of a comedy with what's going to be a little bit of drama thrown in. It's called War Dogs. Jonah Hill. I mean, it reads comedy right off with Jonah Hill being the guy that he plays in it. Miles Teller, who has fame for the Divergent series, in which he plays somebody nobody likes.
Isn't he the same guy?
Bradley Cooper. And
I apologize for interrupting.
Say what?
Isn't that aforementioned person, wasn't he in Whiplash?
Yes.
Yes, he was in Whiplash.
He played that poor abused student.
Like I said, he always plays somebody that nobody likes. But I feel like he's really going to get over in this movie because he kind of plays a more caring character, even though they're doing what they're doing. And they're called War Dogs because they're guys that they deal in the weapons trade and funding for the army and just around the globe. Basically a nod to Lord of War with Nicolas Cage from the early 2000s. But Miles Teller's he's really just trying to make his own. He's trying to impress his girlfriend back home. Jonah Hill is Mr. Suave, Mr. Charismatic, shows up in Hawaiian shirts and white pants for no reason whatsoever.
He's more like Swaven the Boner. It's more like Swaven the Boner, not Suave.
Basically.
Isn't that another word for eccentric?
Oh, no.
But what they do is they bid for a military weapons contract, and they get it. And the reason that they get it is because they underbid by $53 million.
Oh, is that all?
And so basically, yes, military weapons being obtained by for the lowest bidder. So there we go. That's a whole other argument.
Well, another piece of this movie, why they were called War Dogs. I mean, they're kind of reviled from what I've read because
Right.
they're trying to profit. They're trying to make major profit from the war without actually putting their lives on the line.
Never been
It's
soldiers.
just like the worst of the worst.
Yeah, they've never had any military experience whatsoever. And the movie kind of goes into detail from that. They do get attacked when they decide to actually run weapons. They get attacked in Iraq or Syria or wherever they happen to be. And basically, it's going to be a comedy. It's going to be an all-around thing, but I feel like there's going to be a little drama and tension to go in with it. Maybe Jonah Hill gets a gun to his head, and we all can laugh about that. But also Bradley Cooper is in it. He's playing a gun guy that's trying to either, not 100%, I believe, is trying to buy from them or is trying to undercut them in their business. And just playing an all-around bad guy. That movie comes out August 19th. It is based on a true story, so I'm interested to read the real story and see how Hollywooded it up.
Right.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that sounds interesting. Well,
What you got, Greg?
Well, my next movie is again, I'm sticking with the comic book theme here, and this one stars Benedict Cumberbatch, who has been nominated for awards left and right in many of the movies that he's been recently. Probably the most notable, more recent, is The Imitation Game, and he's also has been in one of the Star Trek films, the Star Trek Into Darkness. His voice has been in The Hobbit. I mean, he's just everywhere. He plays Smaug, the voice of Smaug in the Hobbit
He's Sherlock.
series. And
Who?
on television, he's Sherlock.
Who?
Exactly. Sherlock. Sherlock
Who?
Holmes.
Who?
I'd say Night Owl, but it's probably a little too early for that. Just a little too early. Pretty soon. But the movie that's coming out and something that I've been looking forward to in the trailers. I've been looking forward to the trailers. I've known about it for a couple of years. Looking forward to the trailers. Has two of my favorite actors in it. Benedict Cumberbatch as being one of them, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, who in this particular movie typically plays good guys. When he plays bad guys, he's very likable bad guys, but in this one it's going to be totally the opposite. And this movie is Doctor Strange. Another
That was Doctor Who. That's why I was saying who.
Oh, no, not Doctor Who.
Doctor Strange.
He actually chooses to be
Doctor Who is television. But,
oh, crap. God, that's embarrassing.
That's okay. Your sister will like it. But yeah, in this movie he plays Doctor Strange. He's a guy who gets caught up in a situation after having an automobile accident and changing his way of thinking about not just the world, but his innermost self and the outermost self of the world. His career is destroyed. He's a brilliant surgeon, but now, he's on the brink of death, and what happens? Just like in any cool movie, he gets brought back, and now he wants to know everything. He wants to know all these things that are out there that are metaphysical, physical, everything. And it just looks so good. The trailers are off the chain, and Benedict Cumberbatch, the ultimate good guy, against Chiwetel Ejiofor in this movie, the ultimate bad guy. You gotta kind of like that. One knows it has control of it, and one is just trying to figure it all out. And it's just a wonderful looking film. And again, another comic book character, Doctor Strange, again, as I was growing up, was one of my favorite comic books. I had quite a few of those in my collection as a child, so I'm excited.
Strange, I don't remember you talking about that.
I hope everybody else is excited too. Oh yeah, yeah. Doctor Strange.
It's so strange that you would bring that up.
Ha 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 ha.
Who?
Forget it.
So what else you got for us, Karen?
Oh, is it my turn already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, here's my next film is why I want an honorable mention, because I'm starting to feel a little ambivalent about this film, although I still intend. I think it's a very important film, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go see it. Maybe. This film is called.
We got maybes going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, already.
Right. This film is called Birth of a Nation.
Oh, Nate Parker.
Yes. It was written, directed by Nate Parker. It has some of the biggest buzz that has ever surrounded an independent film coming out of the Sundance Festival. More was made. A record amount of money was paid for distribution rights to this film. It won the top prize at Sundance this year. And the The Birth of a Nation, it's a double, the title represents a double-edged sword. There was a movie called The Birth of a Nation made in 1915 by D.W. Griffiths. And that movie was about the Civil War, but told from the point of view of the Confederates kind of being the victims, and why the Ku Klux Klan was justified in sort of, taking over the world, or at least the country. And that film was considered a pioneering film, and from a technical standpoint had like crowd scenes. Things were done with crowd scenes that had never been done in film before, but film was very new at that point. It was roughly 1915, but these kinds of things had never been conceived or completed before. So there were a lot of sort of, what am I trying to say? There were not accolades, no, there were just a lot of advances in film. Like D.W. Griffiths advanced the science of filmmaking significantly because of the techniques that he brought to his film, The Birth of a Nation, but it set the country socially back about 200 years, because and it actually did help to ignite the birth of the Ku Klux Klan in the country after that movie came out. I mean, it was there and then it kind of died away. Well, that movie was credited with its resurgence in a lot of ways. So anyway, so there's that movie. Nate Parker specifically named his movie The Birth of a Nation to take that title back from D.W. Griffiths and to say, no, we're going to put a new spin on this, and we're going to talk about the birth of the nation that should have happened had it not been for the scourge of slavery. He plays Nat Turner. This is another biopic. It's based on a true story. Nat Turner was a preacher in the South. This actually took place in Virginia. The movie takes place in Virginia, and Nat Turner lived in Virginia. Nat Turner in the 1830s incited a rebellion of slaves. And I mean, I do remember reading about this at least a little bit in my history books, and not in any great detail. But it's interesting. I think this movie will be really interesting because it shows this person sort of growing aware. I mean, there's sort of like when you're in a situation, especially when you're trying to just survive, you see some things you don't see other things about what's going on, about the overview of your situation. But because he was sort of sent out as an itinerant preacher to slaves, he got to see how slaves were treated in lots of areas in the South. And when you're born into that situation, you'll grow up thinking, oh my goodness, I'm living in this evil institution, I've got to get out. You think that's the way it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. He learned more as he grew more and more about what slavery was really like and how cruel it really was. So he started out preaching, and the people who owned him wanted him to preach. They needed the money, so they basically rented him out as a preacher so that they could get more money for themselves. But they also wanted him to keep the slaves calm, because the biggest fear of slave owners in the South, especially in the 1820s, 20s through the 50s, was a rebellion. That was the one thing that they were scared to death was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So they sent him out. He preached. He did what he was supposed to do. But then he started looking around. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. There's something really wrong here. And then, of course, he was victimized too. And so he was like, screw this. We're going to fight. And that's where the story takes off. How did he get to the place from being the slave with the slave mentality to somebody who says, I have got to take control of my destiny? That's why I think this movie is so important. That's why so many people think this movie is important. Unfortunately, Nate, the writer, director, conceiver of this movie, is caught up in his own bad situation because he was charged with rape. He was acquitted.
Not just him, but
When he
the
was,
co-writer of this film as well. The co-writer was actually convicted.
and his co-writer, who, you know, and I was
But
talking.
won an appeal and got off anyway.
I was talking with a colleague at work today about this film because she was saying, you know, I have ambivalent feelings about this. I think I'm going to go see it I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to have ambivalent feelings too because, you know, on the one hand, it's like he's in his 30s now. He was 19 then. But on the other hand, it's like he's still friends with the guy. And the whole situation with the guy who was actually found guilty.
It was a big part of this film.
Well, he gets a story credit. I don't know if that means he's a big part of the film or not. I don't know if that meant he actually put pen to paper.
I read something different, but okay, that's fine.
But he might have. I don't know. I'm saying I don't know.
But he's still involved.
He's still involved. He's still involved. And the circumstances that took place back then, we don't really know. We do know that she was drunk and unconscious, and they were saying that they thought it was consensual. But if she's drunk, she was in no condition to consent or not consent to anything. So that doesn't make sense to me. And then unfortunately, the young woman committed suicide 4 years ago. So and I think it's pretty clear that the horror that she went through, what happened, shaped her life in all of the worst ways, and she just felt like she couldn't go on. And I'm getting that sense from comments that her family that members of her family have made to the press. So I'm kind of ambivalent because of that. But I still think it's an important film. It'll be interesting to see because before this came out, and it has nothing to do with like Nate Parker's hiding thing. He never hid any of this. Everybody knew that this was a part of his past. He never hid that. But even though people around him knew, it wasn't generally known in the movie community, and it's just now becoming known. This is a movie that was basically on a glide path to Oscar. It'll be interesting to see if that still is the case when Oscar time comes around. I'll be interested to see.
It's got a real black flag or a black cloud over it, kind of wafting.
Yeah, it kind of does, and I don't know that that's necessarily unjustified under the circumstances. I mean, even his apology, you know, he said, I mean, he didn't say anything, didn't say much at first, and he said a few things. Now he's saying that he has profound sorrow when he learned about the woman's suicide, and he talked about her family, but he didn't talk about her and the horror that she went through. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a good way to make a statement that would, you know, evaporate the cloud.
Are you willing to separate the art from the artist?
Yeah, that's where it's
I don't know.
It's going to come down to. Yeah.
The movie sounds like it
has
real. Yeah, the movie sounds like it has real sentiment to being a true art piece of cinema. But are people willing to accept that movie as that and look at it non-biasedly and go to see it non-biasedly, even though, you know, he has these problems and this black cloud is hanging over it?
I mean, part of me. I mean, like I said, I'm a little ambivalent, but my sense is to sort of still go see the movie because I think in some ways there's a little bit of the scrutiny is unfair, and I think some of that is just because there's a double standard. This is a movie about race. He's African American, and so I think the light is going to be harsher on him than on somebody like Roman Polanski or Woody Allen, for crying out loud. I mean, I think, well, let's not even talk about what I think about Woody Allen, but people rush to see his films, and I'm like, ooh, he married his daughter. Ooh. So, I mean, adopted daughter. So, you know, no one is saying, well, we need to boycott Woody Allen. And so I'm not going to say, well, you know, Nate Parker he was acquitted, and I don't know if acquitted means the same as not guilty. I have no idea. Maybe it was a technicality. Maybe it was something else. I have no idea. But he was not
like
convicted.
A lack of evidence.
It was like, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Of course, it doesn't mean that it did.
Right.
But he was acquitted for whatever reasons, and I hope, my profound hope is that he is a much, much, much different and incredibly different, better person now in his 30s than he was when he was, some jerk in college back then. I mean, he's raising a daughter, so I hope that he's a true man in the best sense of the word now. I don't know. But yes, I guess all that to say, I guess I am more willing than not to separate the artists, because we have great art from people who are just miserable human beings all the time. And if we only looked at art from people who are great human beings, we would hardly see anything. We would miss so much.
That's true.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
Anyway,
Well,
sorry, I got on a bit of a soapbox there, but.
Okay. So what else you got for us, Steve?
Time. Say what?
What else you got for us?
I've got a tingling sense going on, and I'm actually going to change the movie that I picked.
What?
Now, it's not because of picking a bad movie, because the other movie, I'm going to go ahead and say it, Tom Cruise in the new Jack Reacher movie. I feel
I want to see
Tom
that.
Cruise as an actor. Boom. I love Tom Cruise as an actor. I feel like it's going to be good, but I'm going to get on this. I'm going to continue with this true story based on a true story kick that we've got going on right now.
All right.
And the movie's called Hacksaw Ridge. It's got Andrew Garfield in it, who played Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
And it's the story of Desmond T. Doss, a World War II soldier who is actually the first conscientious objector to war, to violence, to everything, to win a Medal of Honor.
Wow.
He grew up wanting to be a doctor, wanting to help people, but he never really had a good education. He wasn't really a not going to say a smart person, but he wasn't a genius and a person who could pursue that route. So he went into the military to help people. And that's what he wanted to do. That's everything that I've seen from the trailer so far. And he learned, but he didn't learn how to use guns, weapons, how to use techniques for taking people down and stuff like that, because he objected so hard to violence. He was actually had a court hearing whether he would be discharged from the military because of the draft during World War II, whether he would have an honorable, dishonorable discharge. And they granted him the ability to serve the military and not hold a weapon and not be a violent person. And he suffered a lot of persecution from fellow soldiers because they branded him a coward. They really looked down on him. He was beaten many, many, many times, just in barracks while sleeping and stuff like that. And then at Hacksaw Ridge, you see in the trailer where there's a group of soldiers that are waiting on him, and the higher-ups don't even know who he is and are wondering why they haven't pulled out of the position. And he saves lives. He saves people's lives without using violence, hides people in dirt and under bodies to move them from place to place and not get captured. I feel like it will be a really, really good movie for people to see, especially in this day and age with all the violent actions that are being committed by everyone, by all kinds of people, all kinds of anything. That there is a point and there's an understanding that violence isn't always the answer, and I feel like that could be a very good underlying tone, but for the generation that we're setting up to move everything onto, for us getting older and really coming to terms with our fellow man. And especially for this kind of story to be brought up during World War II, during where America found a resurgence based on violence in the economy and everything.
Yep.
So
That is so true.
that's really why I switched it. I just had this tingling feeling that I feel like this would be a more justified option for this list.
Oh, very cool. And, you know, it's funny when you mentioned that. The first thing that came to mind very quickly was a movie back in the, I think it was in the late 30s or early 40s, was actually probably late 30s, was Sergeant York with Gary Cooper, which is a biopic about a guy who went into the war and did not want to be violent. Yet he too saved his company. Now he used violence to save them, but it was very reluctant for him. It was
he was a Quaker.
And he was right. He was an objector, but
those religious convictions that
but he still ended up saving a lot of lives, not just lives of his men, but also lives of his enemies. It was really interesting how that came about. So very good movie. Sounds good, Steve.
It's very interesting.
Well, my last movie again is back into fantasy after all that reality check.
We got to break it up somehow.
Okay. Well, here I am breaking up that monotony of that violence. Well, the biopics. Okay, so this is a movie. I'm a Star Wars fan. Probably not unlike very many people out there. And one of the cool things about Star Wars, and also one of the crazy things about Star Wars, is we got this early version back in the 70s of, Luke Skywalker growing up, and eventually from movie to movie to movie, growing up and ending up fighting Darth Vader and all that craziness in the Force that was going on. Well, then they brought us back in time to when Darth Vader was a Jedi Knight too, and was young just like his eventual son Luke was, and then we're bouncing back and forth. And George Lucas is saying, hey, this is all relevant in the total scheme of things. Well, as we're looking at all these movies bouncing back and forth, it does seem to make more sense, and you do get a better understanding of what's going on. So they've decided to do it again. And so the movie that they're utilizing for this is a movie called Rogue One. And this is a Star Wars story. And this looks like a pretty intriguing film. Now, I think this is kind of a filler to try to get people from the time of the last Star Wars movie, which was this past year, to the next Star Wars movie, so that people aren't just biting on the bit and all that good stuff. They have another movie out. So this is that movie. But I was watching the trailers, trying to see, am I going to like this? Does this seem cool? And trailer after trailer after trailer that I've seen makes me want to watch this movie more and more and more. Now, I'm not a big fan or knower of Felicity Jones, who plays the main character in this film, but there's a few people in this film that make a difference. Jimmy Smits I've been a fan of him for years. James Earl Jones is back with the voice of Darth Vader in this film, so that's always good. We've got Donnie Yen. Now, Donnie Yen is one of my favorite martial arts movie guys out there, and a great predecessor to the Bruce Lee fame. Donnie Yen is one of those guys. He's in one of my favorite new movies, Ip Man, and the series of 3 movies there. But he's just a really good action star. And then we've got a young man who he plays quirky characters, but I think he's a pretty good actor. And I can never remember how to say his name. Alan, I believe it's pronounced Tudyk. It's Tudyk. Like him in films, again, he's a little more of the comic relief kind of person, so I expect that to not be so different in this film. But the trailers really make this film look like it's going to be a pretty good movie, guys. And Steve, I know, is going to really like this part. Forrest Whitaker is in this film. So Forrest Whitaker, we know, has major star power. I think he's going to be more like a sage in this film, but at the same time, that doesn't mean anything. He brings good quality even to a sage. So I like this. makeup of actors, and the trailers look really good. Definitely take a look at these trailers that we're all mentioning, ladies and gentlemen, because I think it's going to persuade you to watch these films. And I think Rogue One is going to be another one of those films that's going to surprise people and actually be really, really good.
Cool.
So we've gotten through our major films. We're going to try to pick like 3 films that we thought were really, really good. So let's go back and talk about, we're going to go in reverse order, and talk about our honorable mentions. So I'm going to briefly talk about my honorable mention, which is The Mechanic with Jason Statham. Mechanic Resurrection. Now, in the original movie, long time ago with James Caan, very good film, liked it. So when they said it was going to be a remake, I'm thinking, because I'm not a big fan of remakes necessarily.
Purist.
Whatever. So, but here I go, bumping my head, going against myself again, and I watched The Mechanic. Now, The Mechanic was okay. I'm not going to say it was a great film. Had enough action to make it okay. But here's the thing. I'm a big Jonathan Statham fan, so that makes sense for me. But even The Mechanic was just a little clunky. But the trailers for this new Mechanic takes it off of being clunky a little more toward the kind of films that Jonathan Statham is really in. It's not going to be as methodical as the other film. I think it's going to have more action. And
lots
now,
more action.
Lots of action. And I think the fact that he's going to be trying to save someone in this film as opposed to trying just to be a hitman for hire, now he's going to be a hitman to save a life. I know that's contradictory, isn't it? Like an oxymoron. But I actually like this trailer. It actually looks really, really good. And I think it goes along the lines of like the what was the movie? The Driver. What's it called? Oh man, why can't
Transporter.
Thank you very much, Steve. The Transporter.
Yeah.
More along the lines of that kind of film, which was, kind of drew me in. So I'm hoping this film will draw people in, and I think it looks pretty good. And I like the storyline. He's got to save the woman that he loves, and unfortunately for him, the woman that he loves is a little crafty as herself. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun, if nothing else, to watch. So that's my.
Isn't the girl Jessica Alba?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And she seems like she's got a really good head on her shoulders, and that's what it's going to make this movie. Because it's not like this person who has no mind whatsoever gets kidnapped. She's got something going on here. She's just waiting for her moment, and I think that's going to make this film a little bit better, a little bit more easier to palate than some other crazy movies out there. So that's my honorable mention. What you got, Steve? You were talking about Jack Reacher. Is that yours?
No, I'm actually not. That was just a passing mention. Kind of a tie, but as I said before we started this whole thing, my honorable mentions got one crazy actor. Kind of fell off the deep end a long time ago. Has been trying to get back. Has put out some okay movies. In his time of being kind of under the radar ever since then. The movie's called Bloodfather. I don't have a date for it. This could be one that you really haven't noticed. Bloodfather. B-L-O-O-D, father.
That's so weird.
The leading actor is Mel Gibson.
Oh! Ew!
Yeah, I said
Okay.
fan.
That's just wrong on so many levels.
See, you had a director that had all these issues coming in. I've got an actor that's got all these issues coming in. So here we go.
Yeah, here we
go. Basically, he has a daughter that he hasn't seen in years, and she's in trouble. He runs a tattoo shop out of his RV. So he's kind of a broke down, just a never there kind of dad. The daughter is Erin Moriarty. From what I can see, she's been in the Netflix series Jessica Jones as Jessica Jones's friend in that movie.
I know exactly who it is.
Captain Fantastic, I've never heard of. The Philosophers, but other
She's
stuff to check out.
She's not bad. She's a good actress.
they, yeah, her and her boyfriend at the time, whom she claims she shot, were drug dealers, and were basically working the cartel and were working a drug trade. The boyfriend is Diego Luna, who is actually playing he's in Rogue One.
I was going to say, wait a minute, he's in Rogue One.
Yeah, he's playing the I got his name right here. Hang on. No, I don't. I lied.
Well, you know what? You were talking about westerns a little bit ago, Stephen. He's actually one of my favorite modern westerns. He's an Open Range.
Oh, such a good one. Such a good one. Kevin Costner. Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a great role for Kevin Costner to play a guy that's just got not a care in the world for any single human being except his friend.
I mean,
but
it's
off topic.
Okay.
But basically, these people are coming to try to get his daughter, and he's got to protect her. He's got to defend her. He wants to be there for her, even though he never has. And that's really the blood father and the reason for that relation and that title. And he's just a bad man.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had a lot that just hasn't gone his way, and he's really going to drive the point home that he's willing to be there for his daughter when she needs him the most. And I feel there was another movie called Get the Gringo, Mel Gibson after he'd fallen off the deep end, and it was a really good movie where he was basically being chased around by
he was basically a gringo.
Yeah, where he was basically, yeah, that's exactly right. But I feel like this could lead him back to a little bit of acting redemption. Not necessarily any popularity votes with the modern populace, but could give him, gateways into movies. And we all know he can act. That's just fact. And so that's my honorable mention. That was my honorable mention before we started this thing, too.
Okay, you were just trying to avoid my angst with Tom Cruise, weren't you?
You know what? I can only
angst, just that movie.
Just the idea of he's not 6'2", blonde-haired, and
Okay, I'm telling you, if Jack Reacher
he can play 6'2".
Anything close to the book, because I read the books, because it's a series of books. It should have been Hugh Jackman.
Very good.
It would have been Hugh Jackman. I'm just saying.
Would you have accepted it? Would you have accepted a Daniel Craig?
No. I like Daniel Craig. But again, no. He's James Bond, and that's sadly for him, that's his deal. But I don't dislike Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher because I think he did a good job in the first movie. I do. It's just it was hard for me to watch it because I read the book and I know the character in the book looks nothing like Tom.
No, Tom Cruise can play 6'2".
He was still 5'2", and he was beating up guys who were 6'2".
Well, that's true.
Hey, but he's been doing that his whole career. We've just
I
learned
know,
to accept it.
I know. I have all the Mission Impossible movies. I'm telling you, I like Tom Cruise. It's not about Tom Cruise as an actor. It's about this character. And he even beat up on David Oyelowo in that last movie.
Oh, well, then it's on. It's on.
Yeah. And what's funny is you mentioned Daniel Craig. Well, David Oyelowo is the voice of James Bond for all the audiobooks.
Right.
So it's
and
just
David Oyelowo is only 5'1".
I know.
No,
he can't be James Bond.
No.
What? Okay, so anyway. Okay, I guess we're segueing not so gracefully into your last honorable mention.
Yeah, we're lurching into my honorable mention. So, so I'm going to bring it back around to civil rights, social justice, films with social import. So my honorable mention, and I probably would have made it into my list if I'd simply remembered it, is a film called Loving. It's coming out in November of this year. And again, based on a true story, but it's about Richard and Mildred Loving, a Virginia
Oh.
couple who were jailed for violating Virginia laws against, because Virginia is all over the movies over the next couple of months,
Obviously.
and not for all the wrong reasons, but
Your neck of the woods.
Nobody
Virginia,
likes Virginia anyway.
That's her neck of the woods, though.
that's my neck of the woods. I live in Maryland, and Virginia's right down the street. But Virginia, as most states did in the 1960s, had laws that prohibited blacks and whites from marrying. And Virginia, in this particular instance, Mildred and Richard Loving, when they got married, they were put in jail. And the American Civil, I remember reading about this case when I remember when the Supreme Court issued its decision. I was a kid at the time, but I remember making a point to read about it. But when the I believe it was the ACLU that undertook their legal defense and appealed the state court decisions all the way up to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court in 1967 struck down, they were called miscegenation laws, and the Supreme Court struck down miscegenation laws as unconstitutional because of this decision, because this couple ended up just being captured by events and placed on a world stage, and they lived in rural Virginia, and they just were minding their own business, and the whole world just said, no, you're not going to be able to mind your own business. So, so they ended up becoming world famous on the cover of Life and Time and all that, and they just really wanted to live a simple life. There was something, it got a standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival early this spring. Focus Features paid $9 million for distribution rights. And when the Supreme Court turned over the decision, the circuit court judge, and I feel sorry for the guy who plays him because he's going to come off as just pure evil, but anyway, the circuit court judge wrote in his state court decision that Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. And but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriages. The fact that he separated the races shows he did not intend for the races to mix. So that's what the state court judge thought. And then in 1967, the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, Virginia's Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which was the law, was unconstitutional. So, yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, he is going to come off as pure evil.
He is, I guess. Well, not maybe for a lot of people, maybe not for some. Maybe there might be others. There might be others who think, "Hey, this is an idea whose time has come and gone." But there's
dear.
There is this one part when I watched the trailer, which I thought was I think this will have real resonance, but there's this one part where I think it was the ACLU lawyer, he's going over strategy for appealing the state court decision, and of course Richard Loving is not able to testify at the appellate stages, and neither is Mildred Loving. But the lawyer says to Richard Loving, is there anything, we've gone over all this stuff, is there anything else that you think I should tell the justices of the Supreme Court when I go argue this decision? And Joel Edgerton, who plays Richard Loving, just kind of looks at him a little wistfully, and then he just says, just tell the judges I love my wife.
I know, crazy,
And that
huh?
was it. I know, that's crazy, right?
And it's ironic you mentioned that. I recently saw the Free State of Jones.
Oh, you
Uh,
did? What did you think of that?
I enjoyed the movie for the most part. I didn't really. The ending kind of was weird to me,
It
but
got mixed.
yeah, the ending was kind of weird. I think the throughout the film, because the film basically takes place in the 1800s during the the middle part of the Civil War, and um, the and this is a biopic. Um, I can't think of the gentleman's first name, but the last name is Knight, and he is appalled by the fact that even though he's fighting on the Confederate side, um, he's appalled by the fact that as people, because he's kind of a medic in the movie, and as people are going to these tents to be worked on, he's appalled by the fact that only the officers get special privileges. And so he's bringing people there who are out in the middle fighting and getting shot and horrendously, being dismembered and all this stuff, and yet he can't get them into the tent to get operated on. So
Right.
he brings the guy to the tent and pretends he's an officer and say they took him right away. So literally his angst is that all these rich people, it's a rich people's war. All these rich people want to keep their type of life sacred, and a lot of that had to do with slavery. He wasn't opposed to slavery. He was opposed to the fact that people who had massive amount of slaves even got exempt from even being in the war.
Right.
And so this movie also goes to his ancestors. So say what they do in this film, they go back and forth between the 1800s and the early 1800s with regard to the fact that one of his ancestors wants to marry and gets married, and yet on the surface their physicality is Caucasian, but the son is one of his sons from his marriage and to a former slave. And so there's the same kind of situation going on here, a court case where now they're saying you've got to annul this marriage because according to the laws of this state, which I think is Alabama in this one, you can't be married to her because you have too much black blood in you. And he's like, but everyone seems to be missing the point. And what's that? The point was, I love her, and she loves me. So love, they coined another phrase. What's love got to do with it? Had to get that in there. But yeah,
You've been thinking that one all night.
yeah. No,
It
but
took you all night to think of that? Really?
whatever. And so all this to say, this theme keeps reoccurring over and over and over and over again. And then to go to what you were saying too about this guy, this military guy, Stephen, um, trying to do a better thing, even in the midst of the horrible thing. We as a people, a human people, a humanity, have got to figure out a way to get out of this craziness. It's unnecessary stuff. And love is the rule. Love is what it's supposed to be all about. We're supposed to be loving each other, and people seem to miss that point for some reason, and I'm sadly abacked by that. But not to bring this all down. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you like the movies that we've discussed and talked about, and we're hoping that you really go out there and try to see these films. And I think it would be interesting to find out after these films have come out and we've all had an opportunity to watch as many as we can of them, to come back and talk about and see what the trend was, what was the outcome, what was people's opinions, and how many people really enjoyed these films. And then also too, any of these films, even though I don't think in your mind were really up to par, do any of these films really, like you were saying, Karen, get the Oscar buzz? I'm interested.
It'll be very interesting. I just, it's very hard to predict what the Oscars are going to be like because, the Oscars have their own controversy because of last year's Oscars where no one of color was nominated for any, I don't think for any awards.
No,
Um,
that's.
hmm?
I said that's true.
Yeah. So it's ironic. You've got the Birth of a Nation, which is like kind of like this leading had all this buzz. It's like a leading contender to sort of like it would get this Oscar buzz and get the Oscar nominations and get rid of that hashtag Oscars so white kind of thing that's been like connected with the Oscars ever since last year. But now, it's like, oh no.
Well,
It'll
the Oscars have also been following a trend of big and dramatic and like the biopic movies. They've been following a trend where they're focusing very much on those kinds of movies, and it'll be interesting to see if they, because there are so many African American biopics that are coming out, if they're willing to take a step back and be like, look, these movies are what we normally gravitate to, or are we gonna just sit there and go, no, 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 we'll just brush that to the side?
right.
Mm.
You,
It
you
will be
can't you
interesting to
can't
see.
disregard.
Oh, also too, bringing that up to a point, I've got my uh, what do you call it? What were you calling the other movies? I got another other movie, and that's
Honorable mention.
honorable mention, and I think this movie is already out, but it didn't get a lot of buzz, and I'm only mentioning it because it's a biopic, and that's a movie about Miles Davis with
It is already out, but
yeah.
it just
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Is
where
anybody
when it came out, but it
me
should.
either.
It's like really because this movie is supposed to be way better than the Nina Simone movie, which was really as bad
Really
as it
bad.
looked.
But yeah, I listen to Miles Davis music because I do like a little jazz there, although he says it's not jazz. I do like a little jazz music with my other genres, but I also like the actor in Don Cheadle, and I was thinking, well, he'd probably do a really good job, but yet I haven't seen or heard a whole bunch about it, so I'm gonna start looking for that. Um,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, but you know, I'm into this biopic stuff, and the more biopics I find, it makes me read a little bit more about history and try to understand a little bit more. And as Steve will tell you, I'm the historian where we work away from here, correcting all the historical moments and adding a little bit
He's
of
seen it all.
adding a little bit of humor to it too. But
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm
it
just
happens when you're a legend in your own mind.
don't share that, Steve. I think they already know.
I heard nothing.
But I'd like to say thanks for our critic uh, uh, outreach critic here, Stephen, who never picks a bad movie. So whatever he's mentioned, you definitely want to see. Karen has a really good track record, so you definitely want to see those films. And I'm hoping that even though my track record is a little bit suspect, that you'll even at least try to give some of those movies a watch and definitely check out the trailers. Again, I'm just going to mention my movies real quick, and if you guys would do the same. We've got Suicide Squad, Rogue One, and Doctor Strange. Throwing in there The Mechanic, Resurrection, and the movie about Miles Davis, which I think is just called Miles, I think.
hmm
And how about you, Karen?
My movies are Hidden Figures, which is supposed to come out in January 2017, if not a little bit before. The Birth of a Nation, which is due out in October. Queen of Katwe, which is due out towards the end of September. And then my honorable mention is Loving, which is due out in November of this year.
Okay, Stephen, why don't you bring us in? You're our critic at large.
All right, I've got War Dogs coming out August 19th. I have The Magnificent Seven coming out September 23rd. Hacksaw Ridge, I don't have a date for, and neither do but Jack Reacher on October 21st. And then Bloodfather. I don't have a date for it yet. It might already be out. Mel
I think
Gibson's crazy. Who
Bloodfather's
knows? They
actually out
might
there.
have
I
made him
think.
release it early.
Yeah, I think Bloodfather, I think, is actually out there. Because when you said it, it didn't hit me until you said Mel Gibson, and then I realized what movie it was. But yeah, I think that's out there. But regardless of when they come out, ladies and gentlemen, check out the trailers. That way you'll be abreast of when they'll come out, and hopefully you'll enjoy the trailers and enjoy the films, because we're going to sure try to go out there and take a look at them and see if we enjoy them as well. See if we can follow our own advice. That would be interesting to see too. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, the movie maven herself, Miss Karen D, and the guy who doesn't pick a bad movie, Mr. Stephen C. And you guys have a wonderful night, and thanks everybody for joining us. Take care, and good night.
Night.